Hey, this video is for your Greek class. This goes along with your Croy textbook, so if you wanted to grab your textbook and follow along or take some notes. These are participles, and they are super important, and so do your best with them, but you might want to watch this video more than once. Participles are this. They're basically a verbal adjective, and because of that, they have both verb characteristics and adjective characteristics, so there's a lot of things to keep track of. As far as adjectives, they're going to have these things: gender, number, case. Since they're verbal, they have a tense, they have a voice, and then we're treating participle kind of like it is the mood. And so we'll talk about that in class. For the adjectival characteristics then, you have these masculine, feminine, neuter, singular and plural, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. They can be all of those things, and so you have to keep track of those. And then for verbal characteristics, you've got these kinds of endings. And so you're going to have these present active endings that are like on or ontos, ousa or ouses, on or ontos. You can see how it looks: masculine, feminine, and neuter. And then for the middle passives, it's always going to have this men in it, so that's going to help us. But os, a, on, ou, ace, ou, that looks like what we kind of know for masculine, feminine, and neuter. That also is going to be true that in the other chapters, the next couple of chapters, it's going to talk not just about present participles, which is what this chapter deals with, but also past participles. And so you're going to have aorist ones, and you notice that saw that we've gotten used to with the aorist. Aorist passive ones, they have a theta, so again, something we recognize, and then perfect ones that will have a kappa in them, and they also will have the reduplication. So they should be quite recognizable. I just said that, and now I'm not sure if they have them. We'll take a look when we get there. Here are the present active participles. This is its most basic form. You always have to have the genitive, because the genitive is actually what helps you tell you what's going on. And then this follows basically the third declension nouns. And so that's why this is the order in your textbook, chapter 17, then chapter 18. So luon becomes luontos, becomes luonti, becomes luonta. So as, e, a. Ace, luontes, luonton, luusin, and then luontas. And so the dative plural is always a little bit weird. The feminine ones have this as kind of their ending, luusa, and then they follow this pattern, which was the just first declension nouns. If you go way back there, the mixed ones. Luusa, luuses, luuse, lusan, lusai, luson, lusais, lusas. The neuter ones have luon, and then always nominative and accusative are the same. So luontos, luonti, luon. Same thing in the plural: luonta, luonton, luusin, luonta. And then I mentioned already that the middle passive ones have this in the middle. They have the men, and then they follow the first and second declension noun endings. So luomenos, luomene, luomenon. And you can either learn them as masculine, feminine, and neuter, or you can learn them across cases. I've later become convinced that maybe across cases is better. So os, a, on, ou, ace, ou, because then they follow the definite articles that you learned way back at the beginning of Greek. The syntax of these is what's actually more important. So this is recognizing them in these two charts, and especially in this chart, we'll probably actually learn the to be, because the to be is this without the lu at the beginning. We can talk about that in class as well. But beyond recognizing them, the question is, how do you translate these things? Because all of a sudden, your decision-making options as a translator are going to multiply immensely. There's kind of two big categories here for now. Well, actually three maybe. There's adjectives, and adjectives that can function as a substantive, as a noun. And then there's adverbial participles. Let me start with the adjective ones and kind of talk you through them. And then I'm going to give you a rule of thumb for now, but we can complicate that over the next few lessons as we go. The adjective participles are in the attributive position. So they're just like any other adjective that we would have from our Greek apples to apples, and so we'll do that at some point. But they have gender, case, and number. They're going to have to agree with the noun that they go with. And so you'd see something like this: ha pisteuon are aner. Ha aner is the man. You just have had this word recently. And then pisteuon is in the masculine, singular, nominative. So it goes with it. It's now the believing man. But this is also the believing man, because it has a definite article right before the participle. So, ha aner, ha pisteuon, the believing man. This one would be the praying woman, he pros eukomene, gune. But this one's also the praying woman, he gune, he pros eukomene. Mene, the praying woman. You can also, though, sometimes have an ing, which is what we've been doing so far, like the believing man, or a smoother translation might be, and this is where now it's going to become more complicated, you might, instead of saying the believing man, you might say the man who believes in the Lord. And that's especially true because now you can have additional phrases that get added in there. So you see how you have the believing man, but in the middle of that is also, who does he believe in? He believes in the Lord. As you could have the believing man in the Lord, but that doesn't make sense because the one he believes in is the Lord. So now you say the man who believes in the Lord. So sometimes you're going to use the ing, but sometimes you're going to use who is. This is especially true when you use the adjective as a substantive, when the adjective functions as a noun. We've learned some adjectives that do this all the time, like the blind. There is no noun for blind, though. You just use that adjective. And so here, when the participle doesn't modify a noun but just stands in its place, you end up with something like this. Ha pisteu antes, the believing ones, or the believing men, because they're just there, or the ones who believe, or the men who believe. Same thing you could have in the feminines, like the woman who is baptized, or she's not really the baptizing woman, she's being baptized in this case. She's passive because of the men. And then ta malanta, the things to come. That's a common one that just stands by itself. There's some of these that you'll begin to see regularly that function as a substantive, and so they're in the adjectival form, but they don't have another noun to modify, so they just are by themselves. But you can also begin to see the range of possible interpretations for participles. That's part of what makes them tricky. This becomes even more range when you get into adverbial participles. Adverbial participles are in the predicate position because they describe or modify some kind of verb. And so oftentimes, because of their modifying of a verb, they actually are showing you something about time in relation to the main verb. So this is probably the most common one you'll see for now. Lugon, ton aklon, ha prophetes, aden, anglon. So the main sentence is actually to the right. So if you're looking for your main verb, aden, he saw, really common verb. If you don't know that one, then go back to chapter 14. It's a second aorist. So the prophet saw an angel. When did the prophet see the angel? While he was speaking to the crowd. Or speaking to the crowd, the prophet saw an angel. And so you might add this while as a temporal thing to help you with time. Here's another example of this. Katabainon, prostain, thalasan, ha aner, epheron, ployan. And so here you've got going down to the sea, the man carried the boat, right? And I guess he was carrying the boat while he was going down to the sea, but when he was going down the sea, he was carrying a boat. You've got to play with this a little bit, and so it's hard to do just with one sentence by itself. The context, entire paragraphs, we're going to actually translate a whole book here together, is going to really come into play. And so all of a sudden participles, you can get the basic gist of them, but you have to understand them in context, and we'll just have to work at it because there are no easy answers, and there's still a lot of them that are debated to this day. Present tense participles usually denote simultaneous action with the verb, and so that's why I keep saying when or while. For now, I think we're going to do this because this might help you out. Why don't you just go ahead and translate your homework for all the adverbial participles while. So while this was happening, this also happened. No matter what your indicative verb is, it's happening, the participle is happening at the same time as the indicative verb. And so for now, even if that's slightly awkward, let's just go with that. And then we will work together to figure out how to complicate some of these things. So this chapter, incredibly important, but yet also bringing together things that you already know. You have participles, they have all the adjective characteristics, they have all of the verb characteristics. For now, you're learning present tense ones. You've learned about adjective ones that describe a noun. You've learned about adjective ones that can function by themselves as a substantive. And you've learned about adverbial ones, so ones that are happening at the same time as the indicative, the main verb. And so you're going to translate those while. Like I said, this is an important chapter. Feel free to watch this video again if that would be helpful for you. Otherwise, if you have questions, I look forward to answering those when we get together to class. Okay, great.